Junior by Robert Abernathy, originally published in Galaxy January 1956. Narrated by Tom Trussel. "Junior!" bellowed Parter. "Junior!" squeaked Marta, a quavering echo. "Strayed off again, the young idiot, if he's playing in the shallows with his tide going out." Parter left the sentence hang blackly. He leaned upslope as far as he could stretch, angrily scanning the shoreward reaches where light filtered more brightly down through the murky water, where the sea surface glinted like bits of broken mirror. No sign of Junior. Marta was peering fearfully in the other direction, toward where, as daylight faded, the slope of the coastal shelf was fast losing itself in green profundity. Out there, out of sight at this hour, the reef that loomed sheltering above them fell away in an abrupt cliff-edge, and the abyss began. "Oh, oh," sobbed Marta. "He's lost. He's swum into the abyss and have been eaten by a sea monster." Her slender stem rippled and swayed on its base, and her delicate crown of pinkish tentacles trailed dishevelled in the pull of the ebb tide. "Pish, my dear," said Parter. "There are no sea monsters. At worst," he consoled her stoutly, "Junior may have been trapped in a tide pool." "Oh, oh," gulped Marta. "He'll be eaten by a land monster." "There are no land monsters," snorted Parter. He straightened his stalk so abruptly that the stone to which he and Marta were conjugally attached creaked under them. "How often must I assure you, my dear, that we are the highest form of life?" And, as for his world and geologic epoch, he was quite right. "Oh, oh," gasped Marta. Her spouse gave her up. "Junior!" he roared in a voice that loosened the coral along the reef. Round about, the couple's bereavement had begun attracting attention. In the thickening dusk, tentacles paused from winnowing the sea for their owners' suppers. Stalked heads turned curiously here and there in the colony. Not far away, a threesome of maiden aunts, rooted and brossed to a single substantial boulder, twittered condolences and watched Marta avidly. "Discipline," growled Parter. "That's what he needs. Just wait till I—" "Now, dear," began Marta shakily. "Hi, folks," piped Junior from overhead. His parents swivelled as if on a single stalk. Their offspring was floating a few fathoms above them, paddling lazy against the ebb. Plainly had just swum from some crevice in the reef nearby. In one pair of dangling tentacles he absently hugged a roundish stone, worn sensuously smooth by pounding surf. "Where have you been?" "Nowhere," said Junior innocently. "Just playing hide-and-go-seek with the squids." "With the other polyps," Marta corrected him primly. She detested slang. Parter was eyeing Junior with ominous calm. "And where," he asked, "did you get that stone?" Junior contracted guiltily. The surfstone slipped from his tentacles and plumped to the seafloor in a flurry of sand. He edged away, stammering, "Well, I guess maybe I might have gone a little ways toward the beach." "You guess! When I was a polyp," said Parter, "the small fry obeyed their elders, and no guess about it." "Now, dear," said Marta. "And no spawn of mine," Parter warmed to his lecture, "is going to flout my words. Junior, come here!" Junior paddled cautiously around the home site, just out of tentacle reach. He said in a small voice, "I won't." "Do you hear me?" "Yes," admitted Junior. The neighbours stared. The three maiden aunts clutched one another with muted shrieks, savouring beforehand the language Parter would now use. But Parter said, "Ulp," no more. "Now, dear," put in Marta quickly, "we must be patient. You know all children go through larval stages." "When I was a polyp," Parter began rustily. He coughed out an accidentally inhaled crustacean and started over. "No spawn of mine." Trailing off, he only glared, then roared abruptly, "Sprat!" "I won't," said Junior reflexively, and back-paddled into the coral shadows of the reef. "That wallop," seethed Parter, "wants a good polyping. I mean—" He glowered suspiciously at Marta and the neighbours. "Dear," soothed Marta, "didn't you notice?" "Of course I. Notice what?" "What Junior was doing. Carrying a stone. I don't suppose he understands why just yet, but—" "A stone? Ah, to be sure, a stone. Why, my dear, do you realize what this means?" Parter was once more occupied with improving Marta's mind. It was a long job, without foreseeable end, especially since he and his helpmate were both firmly rooted for life to the same tastefully decorated home site, garnished by Parter himself with coloured pebbles, shells, urchins, and bits of coral in the rather rococo style which had prevailed during Parter's courting days as a free-swimming polyp. "Intelligence, my dear," pronounced Parter, "is quite incompatible with motility. Just think, how could ideas congeal in a brain shuttled hither and yon, bombarded with ever-changing sense impressions? Look at the lower species, which swim about all their lives, incapable of taking root or thought. True intelligence, my dear, as distinguished from instinct, of course, presupposes the fixed viewpoint." He paused. Marta murmured, "Yes, dear," as she always did obediently at this point. Junior undulated past, swimming toward the abyss. He moved a bit heavily now. It was growing hard for him to keep his maturely thickening afterbody in a horizontal posture. "Just look at the young of our own kind," said Parter, "scatterbrained larvae, wandering greedily about in search of new stimuli. But praise be, they mature at last into sensible sessile adults. While yet the unformed intellect rebels against the ending of carefree polyphood, instinct, the wisdom of nature, instructs them to prepare for the great change." He nodded wisely as Junior came gliding back out of the gloom of deep water. Junior's tentacles clutched an irregular basalt fragment, which he must have picked up down the rubble-strewn slope. As he paddled slowly along the rim of the reef, the adult anthozoans located directly below looked up and hissed irritable warnings. He was swimming a bit more easily now, and if Parter had not been a firm believer in instinct, he might have been reminded of the grossly materialistic theory propounded by some iconoclast, according to which a maturing polyp's tendency to grapple objects was merely a matter of taking on ballast. "See," declared Parter triumphantly, "I don't suppose he understands why just yet, but instinct urges him infallibly to assemble the materials for his future home site." Junior let the rock fragment fall and began plucking restlessly at a coral outcropping. "Dear," said Marta, "don't you think you ought to tell him?" "Ahem," said Parter, "the wisdom of instinct." "As you always said, a polyp needs a parent's guidance," remarked Marta. "Ahem," repeated Parter. He straightened his stalk and bellowed authoritatively, "Junior, come here." The prodigal polyp swam warily close. "Yes, Parter?" "Junior," said his parent solemnly, "now that you're about to grow down, it behooves you to know certain facts." Marta blushed a delicate lavender and turned away on her side of the rock. "Very soon now," said Parter, "you will begin feeling an irresistible urge to sink to the bottom, to take root there in some sheltered location which will be your lifetime site. Perhaps you even have an understanding already with some, charming young polyp of the opposite gender, whom you would invite to share your home site. Or, if not, you should take all the more pains to make that site as attractive as possible, in order that such a one may decide to grace it with—" said Junior, understandingly. "That's what the fellows mean when they say any of 'em fall for a few high-class rocks." Parter marshalled his thoughts again. Well, quite apart from such material considerations as selecting the right rocks, there are certain, matters we do not ordinarily discuss. Marta blushed a more pronounced lavender. The three maiden aunts, rooted to their boulder within easy earshot of Parter's carrying voice, put up a respectable pretense of searching one another for non-existent water fleas. "No doubt," said Parter, "in the course of your harum-scarum adventurings as a normal polyp among polyps, you've noticed the ways in which the lower orders reproduce themselves, the activities of the fishes, the crustacea, the marine worms which will not have escaped your attentions." "Uh-huh," said Junior, treading water. "You will have observed that among these there takes place a good deal of, manoeuvring for position. But among intelligent, firmly rooted beings like ourselves, matters are, of course, on a less crude and direct plane. What among lesser creatures is a question of tactics belongs for us to the realm of strategy." Parter's tone grew confiding. "Now, Junior, once you're settled, you'll realize the importance of being easy in your mind about your offspring's parentage. Remember, a niche in brine saves trying. Nothing like choosing your location well in the first place. Study the currents around your prospective site, particularly their direction and force at such crucial times as flood tide. Try to make sure you and your future mate won't be too close down current from anybody else's site, since in a case like that accidents can happen. You understand, Junior?" "Uh-huh," acknowledged Junior. "That's what the fellows mean when they say don't let anybody get the drop on you." "Well," said Parter in flat disapproval. "But it all seems sort of silly," said Julia stubbornly. "I'd rather just keep moving around and not have to do all that figuring. And the ocean's full of things I haven't seen yet. I don't want to grow down." Marta paled with shock. Parter gave his spawn a scalding, scandalized look. "You'll learn. You can't beat biology," he said thickly, creditably keeping his voice down. "Junior, you may go." Junior bobbed off, and Parter admonished Marta sternly. "We must have patience, my dear. All children pass through these larval stages." "Yes, dear," sighed Marta. At long last, Junior seemed to have resigned himself to making the best of it. With considerable exertions, hampered by his increasing bottom heaviness, he was fetching loads of stones, seaweed, and other debris to a spot downslope, and there labouring over what promised to be a fairly ambitious cairn. Judging by what they could see of it, his home site might even prove a credit to the colony, so went Parter's thoughts, and attract a mate who would be a good catch. Thus Marta mused. Junior was still to be seen at times among the reef in company with his free-swimming friends among the other polyps, at some of whom his parents had always looked askance, fearing they were by no means well bred. In fact, there was strong suspicion that some of them, waifs from the disreputable Shallows district in the hazardous reaches just below the tide mark, had never been bred at all, but were products of budding, a practice frowned on in polite society. However, Junior's appearance and rate of locomotion made it clear he would soon be done with juvenile follies. As Parter repeated with satisfaction, "You can't beat biology. As one becomes more and more bottle-shaped, the romantic illusions of youth must inevitably perish." "I always knew there was sound stuff in the youngster," declared Parter expansively. "At least he won't be able to go around with those ragamuffins much longer," breathed Marta thankfully. "What does the young fool think he's doing, fiddling around with soapstone?" grumbled Parter, peering critically through the green to try to make out the details of Junior's building. "Doesn't he know it's apt to slip its place in a year or two?" "Look there," hissed Marta acidly. "Isn't that the little polyp who was so rude once? I wish she wouldn't keep watching Junior like that. Our northwest neighbour heard positively that she's the child of an only parent." "Never mind," Parter turned to reassure her. "Once Junior is properly rooted, his self-respect will cause him to keep riffraff at a distance. It's a matter of psychology, my dear. The vertical position makes all the difference in one's thinking. The great day arrived. Laboriously, Junior put a few finishing touches to his construction, which, so far as could be seen from a distance, had turned out decent-looking enough, though it was rather questionably original in design, lower and flatter than was customary. With one more look at his handiwork, Junior turned bottom end down and sank wearily onto the finished site. After a minute, he paddled experimentally, but flailing tentacles failed to lift him. He was already rooted, and growing more solidly so by the moment. "Congratulations!" cried the neighbours. Pater and Marta bowed this way and that in acknowledgment. Marta waved a condescending tentacle to the three maiden aunts. "I told you so," said Pater triumphantly. "Yes, dear," said Marta meekly. Suddenly there were outcries of alarm from the dwellers down reef. A wave of dismay swept audibly through all the nearer part of the colony. Pater and Marta looked around and froze. Junior had begun paddling again, but this time in a most peculiar manner, with a rotary twist and sidewise scoop which looked awkward, but which he performed so deftly that he must have practised it. Fixed upright as he was now on the platform he had built, he looked for all the world as if he were trying to swim sidewise. "He's gone mad!" squeaked Marta. Gulped Pater. "I'm afraid not." At least, they saw, there was method in Junior's actions. He went on paddling in the same fashion, and now he, and his platform with him, were farther away than they had been, and growing more remote as they stared. Parts of the home site that was not a home site revolved in some way incomprehensible to eyes that had never seen the like, and the whole affair trundled along, rocking at bumps in the sandy bottom, and squeaking painfully. Nevertheless, it moved. The polyps watching from the reef swam out and frolicked after Junior, watching his contrivance go and chattering eager questions, while their parents bawled at them to keep away from that. The three maiden aunts shrieked faintly and swooned in one another's tentacles. The colony was shaken as it had not been since the tidal wave. "Come back!" thundered Pater. "You can't do that!" "Come back!" shrilled Marta. "You can't do that!" "Come back!" gabbled the neighbours. "You can't do that!" But Junior was past listening to reason. Junior was on wheels.